Good morning. This is the Live Be the Solution podcast with my guest, Matthew Merenoff. Today, we are going to talk about pre-for-profits, how to succeed in any real estate economy by leveraging the pre-foreclosure niche. Matthew, welcome. I'm so excited to talk with you this morning.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, Maria.
Yeah, let's go. Let's dive right into it. So, Matthew, what are we talking about this in this pre-foreclosure niche? What is that?
So, this is something that I actually dreamt up with two other individuals that I'm working on for late February. It's going to be hosted in Clearwater, Florida. Basically, what it is um, there are people right now that are struggling in the real estate industry right now. And people are going back to either full-time jobs or they're picking up their part-time job that they used to have, bartending or getting into the food industry because they're panicked. They just don't understand how to adapt. When an interest rate goes up, from what I'm seeing, and I've been in this industry for almost 19 years, people panic. You can't panic. You need to figure out what's your niche. So pre-for-profits is something that was dreamt up between myself, William Bunnell, and Rick Hamrick, who are my partners at this event that we're going to be hosting in Florida. Now, why is it important? Well, whether you come to the event or not, and we'll get into that later, if you're a real estate professional, you could be a wholesaler, you could be somebody who's in a sub-2 market, you could be somebody who's in the pre-foreclosure market, you could be mainstream real estate, you could be a regular real estate agent. You could be what I call as a hybrid agent, where you're a real estate agent, but you're also an investor. Now, whether people listen to me or not, I hope that at least one of your viewers walks away with at least one item or action item, as I call it, from what I'm about to talk about. So in the industry itself, obviously the markets, they go up, they go down, and everything is cyclical. The problem is that we were really due for a little bit of a correction in 2019. COVID got in the way of it. In my opinion, I turned to my wife on my couch one night when they were talking about it on social media, and I said, this is going to be the next wave of foreclosed properties. She said, short sales? I said, no, distressed real estate. Because there are a lot of homeowners that have equity in their property. There are also a lot of homeowners that, I'm sorry to say, but stupidly thought that during COVID, if they didn't have to pay their mortgage, that there wasn't going to be any repercussions. I talked to a lot of people on a national level, and they thought in the back of their head, or they dreamt that there was going to be a lot of debt forgiveness or the can was going to get pushed down the road, similar to what happened in 2007, 2008. But what I'm seeing right now, and you can stop me in any moment if you want me to clarify something, Maria. When the homeowners were saying they can't afford to pay their mortgage, these homeowners were on recorded lines. And they were saying, hey, I can't afford to pay my mortgage. What options are available? And they were putting them into forbearances. Not every lending institution was doing a deferment. There's a difference. A deferment is when whatever you owe goes to the back of your mortgage. Forbearance is basically where they're basically kicking the can down the road for a short period of time. And you have to pay whatever the difference is that you didn't pay. So let's say for round numbers, you didn't pay your mortgage for a year. Well, now it's coming due, and now they want to work with you, per se, and make it so you can catch up on your payments. Well, what they're doing is let's say you owe $1,000 a month. That's your regular mortgage payment, but you haven't paid in 12 months. They want to see that you're paying that $1,000 a month that you mixed in that mortgage payment, and they're adding it to that mortgage payment. So let's say your mortgage payment's $1,000 a month. Now they want you to pay $2,000 a month. So if you could qualify for $1,000 a month now, and they'll say they want you to do, the modification period or whatever it is, or they're giving you a time to catch up to make those payments. What if you can't make it? So I'm talking with asset managers on a national level, and it's scary because it was very misleading for people, homeowners that were in trouble with their property. Real estate agents, for the most part, don't understand it. Their brokers, they don't understand it. I speak with attorneys, they don't understand it. So who's really supposed to understand it? So I'm very fortunate with my craft that I can help people navigate them through the muddy waters that's out there to find out what true options are. Let's back up. In 2005, when I started in the industry, people didn't know who I was or what a short sale was. By 2007, 2008, I started teaching. And then about 2010, I went dark for many years. And I was working side by side with lending institutions to really understand the inner works of what was happening with these properties. Now, people during that time frame that did modifications, it was like, you know, 2005 to 2007 or 2008, people were trying to modify. Then there was another wave of modifications in 2010, 2011. The last wave of modifications was really between 2014, 2016. What does that mean, Matt? Why is that relevant for 2024? Those people that were in those properties had very low interest rates. Do you remember how low those interest rates were, Maria?
Yeah, 4%.
3.5, 4%. And a lot of them were in step rate programs. So they went from, let's say, 2% and they elevated over a 5-year period. Again, government trying to help, which is totally fine. And then putting people back on track and adding success. But those individuals, for whatever reason, thought, hey, you know what? Nobody else is paying your mortgage. I'll worry about it later. I got news for you. Those homeowners that had those lower interest rates got a real slap in their face very recently at the end of 2023, going into 2024. And guess what? They can't afford to pay their mortgage anymore. Those modification options are not there anymore. They've already done partial claims, whereas whatever they didn't pay, for the most part, a lot of those lending institutions were taking those loans and putting them on a second quiet, what I call them whisper loans, no interest rates, no mortgage payments. And when you go to sell the property, you have that there as a standalone and it has to be addressed. But now people have already gone through the forbearance period and they've jacked on what? Even more principal that they have to pay. So people are panicking right now. I'm getting calls not only in New Jersey, but in other states saying, hey, what do I do? And it all goes from people that were in construction to perm loans, regular mortgages, hard money loans. It didn't make a difference. I got a phone call the other night from somebody in California at 9:30 at night from a credit repair company with a client that they were working with. It's a tragedy. They went from 0 to 100 in 6 months with a foreclosure date. So when people are like, oh, foreclosures are being dragged out, they're doing all this stuff. In some instances, yes. I'll give you one example and then I'll turn it over to you. You can ask me whatever questions you want. Did you know that they put a moratorium on VA loans? And think about this. Now, everything was released or late last year, and then all of a sudden now they have it where VA loans actually put another moratorium back in place, and I think it runs till early May of 2024, where if you're a homeowner, you're protected if you live in the property. But if you don't live in the property and you thought, hey, you know what, I'm renting it out, I'm somewhere else, I moved out of my house, and they find out that you're using it as an investment property, they will foreclose on you. The foreclosure action is still in place. So there's a lot of caveats, there's a lot of twists and turns, and I don't think people realize some of the loopholes that might have worked in the past, at least with distressed real estate, going forward in 2024 will not work anymore.
Okay. So I have a bunch of questions.
Go ahead.
All right. So one, how many of these people properties are in this situation? Is there an estimate?
Right now, from what I understand from my sources, again, this is not mainstream real estate. This isn't something that the government talks about. But from talking to individuals inside the banking industry right now, there's about 3 million people on a national level every 30 days that are having a rolling 30. And the numbers keep climbing every single month. And
So
that's a
3 million not paying their mortgage this month,
going
30,
forward since
30 days behind.
since October, November of last year.
Okay. Now, we know that a lot of people have a lot of equity in their homes because over the last 20, 21, 22, 23,
Hmm.
the market has increased probably about 40% nationally on average
Hmm.
in pricing.
Hmm.
So, how does that affect it? A lot of people say there's a lot of equity. Are they using this equity? And had they refied it and pulled money out?
A lot of the homeowners that my niche that I work with, it doesn't apply because I'm dealing with people that have been in and out of foreclosure for probably over 10 years.
I
So
see.
so
So,
even though you would think that there was a time frame where the market kept going up, what about all those years that they didn't pay their mortgage? And a lot of those people have, higher mortgages. I will tell you one story that's very important, and I hope everybody listens to this because this listen to anything else, but listen to what I'm about to say right now. There's a homeowner that has a property that had a second mortgage. They filed bankruptcy. Their bankruptcy attorney misrepresented what the purpose of the bankruptcy was. And I looked at the paperwork, and it's sad as a homeowner. Like, you rely on professionals to actually guide you and tell you what you're doing, right? It's kind of like when you buy a vehicle, you buy a car, they're never going to tell you what the bottom line price is. You got to go back and forth. You have to know somebody in the inside. I reviewed the documentation. It absolutely had nothing to do or said anything about the second mortgage being wiped out, but the homeowners relied on legal counsel. Fast forward 10 years. That second mortgage lay dormant for 10 years. Now they began the foreclosure process on that person. But because it was a second mortgage and it was a lower dollar amount, no matter what they did when they went to go and they're selling the property, it's actually closing next week. This is a transaction that I'm involved in. The second denied them a loan modification and they wanted money up front and they absolutely had the right to do it. But because of that, they were forced to sell their property because they had the first mortgage payment that they were paying, and then they had the second mortgage that they weren't paying for 10 years. They are actually walking away with equity in their property because the lower mortgage never exceeded over the 10 years what would have happened with the first mortgage. So, is there a way that in some instances there is equity? Yes. And they actually have over $100,000 in equity in their property thanks to COVID.
so what I hear, it sounds like this is a very intricate process and very intricate to understand all of things that can happen throughout each scenario. And it sounds like the consumers and also the real estate agent really need an expert by their side to navigate to make sure that they're not missing something in the 150 pages of paperwork you sign when you buy a home.
Correct.
Understood. So I was reading something about the governor of New Jersey signed something just recently. I saw a post that you made
Mhm.
about the pre-foreclosure. Talk about that.
So, this is a scary time that we're in right now. We are literally in uncharted territories. And I feel bad for individuals that are thinking that Governor Murphy put something in place that's so wonderful. The article needs to be really reviewed and read. And I had heard about this 2 years ago, that this was something that they were trying to pass. I don't know if we're going to be one of the pilot states to try it to see if it works. But it's important that everybody understand. If you're a real estate flipper in the state of New Jersey and you hear that Governor Murphy basically is saying that as a homeowner, if you're in foreclosure, you have the right to have a family member essentially bail you out and buy that property. That's effing scary to think that if you decide for whatever reason you want to stop paying your mortgage, that you have a right to have a family member bail you out of your foreclosure. So I don't really agree with all the terms of the bill itself, and I haven't read it fully, but I glanced over it. Here's the highlights. If a house goes to auction and in the state of New Jersey, a family member has a right. I think like when you go to buy a house, you have to put 20% down or something like that, or 30% down at auction. I don't even know these days. But as a homeowner, if you have a family member who wants to buy that property for you to help you, they only have to put 3.5% down to hold it. And then they have, I think, up to, could be wrong, but I think 60 to 90 days to actually get a mortgage in place to buy the property at whatever the fair market value is regarding the upset on the property. Now, do I think this is always going to work? No, I don't. Do I think that people are going to flip out like people are flipping out with what's going on with real estate agents and their commissions being under attack? Yeah. You got to read the undertone of what the article is and really what's in place. And unfortunately, they're making it seem like, flippers won't be able to flip properties. I want to make this clear that if you don't follow me on Facebook, follow me, which is my name, Matthew Merenoff, and you actually see that article that I posted on it. If you plan on buying the property and you think you're, some type of wise guy and you're a flipper and you can offer the homeowner money, there is a catch. There's a caveat to it. That property has to be held for 7 years. And if you try to sell that property as a flip, you can get fined $100,000 to $500,000.
I
So
see.
the
You're
article
talking.
needs to be written.
Okay, so what you're saying is, in layman's terms, is the family member will sell it to the other family member,
Yep.
and somebody who thinks they're slick will then try to flip the property on the open market, but they can't do it. They have to keep the property for 7 years.
Minimum 7 years. Yeah.
Minimum. Ah, very interesting. So yeah, because there's always people that try to work around the system. That's for sure. Makes sense. So Matthew, let's talk about listing agents, and let's talk about how they can use some of this information that you have to go into their databases and see if there's somebody they can help by and making money with you. Let's talk about how that can work.
Super easy. I tell agents all the time, work smarter, not harder. The real estate agents listed? No, absolutely not. They try to do things on their own. They're not educated enough to understand, the environment from the distress side, whether or not they can actually physically help somebody. And that's a lot of stress. I have people that I work with on a daily basis that are agents, and they want no part of it. They just want to go out. They want to see how many people they can help, the listings that they can get, or from the buyer's side, work with buyers that want to buy these particular properties. My office is heavily involved in the back office of working these transactions. What do I mean? If you identify a property, well, I'll give you an example. Are you aware of Princeton, New Jersey?
Yes.
So we got a lead on a property from a previous real estate agent that we worked with on a different property. That short sale went on for over 2 years before we got involved. We actually wrapped it up in under 6 months. We had to unravel a lot of stuff that was in there. And one of the caveats on why they couldn't get that deal done is because there was an open insurance claim. Nobody knew to ask these questions because they're not trained. Got it done. The agent said, I'm forever grateful. If I ever find somebody who's in trouble, you're my guy. So she refers me to this other real estate agent, co-worker, tells me the scenario of the story. The homeowners are slated to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure on their property. Now, a deed in lieu of foreclosure of the property is nothing more than giving the property back to the bank in lieu of a foreclosure.
Right.
And people think it's glamorous. Whereas, well, I don't have to deal with anything. I don't have to deal with anybody. And they offered $10,000 for moving expenses, or to, basically packing up and get out of the house. But it was up to $10,000. Up to $10,000. That's not what they read. Strike number one, red flag. Number two, red flag. There was 2 documents that they received. One from the foreclosure attorney and one from the lending institution. Now, the lending institution had one date on it. The bank had a different date on it. One set of documents had made note of the up to $10,000. The other document did not show anything about the up to $10,000. I got involved in it. I had a very deep conversation. Sometimes my wife laughs and says, "Are you an on-call doctor?" I had a phone call with these people at 9:30 at night. Call went for about an hour and 15 minutes. By the end of the call, they just didn't know which way to go. I said, Google me, Google my name, Google my company, call me back in the next day or two and let me know if this is something that interests you. I don't believe that you should look into the deed in lieu and move forward. They already signed the original paperwork saying they wanted to apply for it. They were approved for it. They didn't even get first warning. They didn't even get any type of judgment letter saying that they were in actual active foreclosure. Why would you do a deed in lieu on the property and run yourself out of your house unnecessarily when you didn't have to do it? I said, what is your course of action? What are you doing next? They were so impressed, forget the knowledge, but the passion and what I brought in that conversation. The next day, the husband and the wife called me without their real estate agent, said, what are we going to do? We want to move forward with you. Put a course of action in place. They literally had 14 days to vacate the property during the holidays. And it had to be broom swept. And there was still no guarantee that they could sell that property. I'm sorry, that they give the property back to the bank and that they would make money. And let me make it clear, when they say it's up to $10,000, they could find any reason and give you zero. And now you're out of your house and your house sits vacant 6, 7, 8 months until they decide to do whatever they want to do with the property. Whereas if you could have stayed in the property, saved some money, and move on to the next venture of your life. But what they wanted to do is they just needed a little bit more time. It wasn't money driven. You understand what I'm saying, Maria? It wasn't money driven. They wanted to have a course of action, a real plan in place. They hired an attorney to help them. They paid a retainer for that attorney. The attorney says, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is how much money I need up front. By the way, I'll be away for the next week. When I come back from vacation, we'll start. But make sure you pay that money. 2 days later, they had to send those documents in for a yes or no, or whether they were going to move forward with the final deed in lieu. They got their money back from that attorney. They retained a different attorney that I do business with. I do business with different title companies, different attorneys, whatever it is. What's my point? House is on the market. House has a contract on it. House is going to sell. And they've got about probably at least a minimum of 2 months moving forward. And that's all they needed was a little extra time to put a game plan in place. So that's why the experience of what I do and what I offer is so important. And I don't get paid by the real estate agents. Whoever buys that property as a short sale, that is how I get paid. It's a win-win. But real estate agents don't understand. And I hope if they watch this, they'll get a little bit more understanding on how valuable it is to understand what it is that the homeowner is really looking for. Stop going on the listing appointments and go on a listening appointment.
It is all about listening, that's for sure. Let's switch gears for a moment. I have spoken to a lot of investors, especially first-time, second-time investors who have hard money loans. Hard money loans coming due. Houses aren't selling that they bought to flip. fix and flip, and they're starting to panic.
At what dollar amount are they buying these properties? At what?
What are they trying to sell them for?
Yeah, exactly. What's the price range?
They're usually under 300.
The reason why I asked this question is I spoke with somebody the other day, and they actually have a house was on the market. Now it's still on the market for $2.3 million. This investor, who was somewhat of a seasoned investor, took a leap from his usual 250 to 500 range, which is his comfort zone, and has successfully drove himself into a Chapter 13 underneath his property that he has. He invested $600,000 of his own money into the property, and he had filed a 13. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV, but based on what he told me in that conversation, the following day, that property was going to be going to sale. Now, why am I bringing it up? If he got back to me 30 days prior, I might have been able to reach out to that hard money lender and spoken to them and maybe done, a short sale on the property and made it meaningful enough that the property could have sold. This dude literally had to pay for a 13. He has a primary residence with 50% equity in it. He also has another $1 million project that he's working on that's almost complete. What do you think the trustee might do to this person in the 13 when he sees he's got all this other equity? You think he's going to make him liquidate? Most probably. So I don't think what he did was the right thing, but he panicked. That's why I tell people all the time, like, even if you want to call for advice, get the advice that you need to do. Don't just panic and do something like that. So if you have somebody that's $300,000 and the property's over leveraged and it can't sell, maybe because it's a higher interest rate and it doesn't work, with that matrix. Maybe they had issues during COVID for the time frame for inspections. Maybe the inflation of the product, the building material to do the house, had an issue with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. For example, they could have, you make your money on the buy. So they could have overpaid for the property. They bought the property with a buyer's agent. That same buyer's agent went to put the property on the market as a listing agent.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as strong. Look, as you know, Matthew, buying agents and listing agents aren't created equal. They're not the same species. So I think a lot of investors make this mistake. And I want your thoughts about this.
My thought is this.
They make
go ahead.
They use the same agent who they bought the property with to list the property. That agent generally does not have a team behind them, does not have a whole marketing suite, doesn't do virtual pictures, doesn't have the home warranty, doesn't make sure that, can it apply for the Philly First? Can it get money from one of these programs through WISFIS or through Prosperity where you get 10 grand towards closing? None of that's in there. The ad's not written. The listing description is not written properly. It's not written. It's written for the neighborhood. Most people don't know the neighborhood they're moving to exactly.
Right.
So your thoughts on that statement?
My thought is this. I'm not saying that all agents are created equal. And I don't know if a listing agent and a buyer agent, look, some people are professional buyer agents. They're really good at it. Some people are good listing agents. Some people are good at doing both. Problem is that sometimes when you're overextended, like you said, and you don't have a team behind you and you don't know how to market properly, like as soon as that property closed, bam, that's when they should have started marketing that property. Maybe they could have included a first-time home buyer, like you just said, Philly First, and whatever these other programs that are available that are out there. There's a way of marketing with these types of properties. Unfortunately, again, most people want to throw shit up against the wall and they don't want to get properly educated. And by doing that, really what they're doing is, if you get hurting your career, your reputation, you're hurting somebody that potentially you're helping them buy a property. Locating a property, sometimes you can get lucky and do that, right? But selling a property, in my opinion, I don't really care what market you're in, a valuable listing agent that understands all the caveats you just discussed is really what's going to win the race. And I want to say one other thing. We are in, what is it, 2 weeks into the new year, and I've already had two real estate agents, two, step down as listing agents and end up getting referral fees because they weren't doing their job as a listing agent. So does that answer your question as far as not understanding what's going on?
A lot of people got into the industry in the last, 5, 6 years and didn't really experience what a difficult market is, as you and I both know from being in the industry back before 2008. There's only 7%, 7.3% of real estate professionals on the brokerage side who have been in the business since before 2008.
Oh
It's a
wow, I didn't know
staggering
that.
number.
Oh wow. I know
Yeah,
there's a
because
lot of people that retired.
retired, left the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During COVID. I know real estate agents that had to go see therapists, and I don't even say it's jokingly, 2, 3 therapists, or they had to switch therapists because they were going out of their mind. COVID really destroyed a lot of people's sense of, um, you know, uh, prospecting with either listings or buyings and buyers, and having to go out and take videos. And the really COVID really took away there's a lot of people, I don't even know how to describe it. There's so many people out there touchy feely, huggy, kissy. They want to, like, they need that interaction. That interaction was lost during COVID. So it really destroyed a lot of people. And then you got a lot of people that came into the industry where their license were hanging low dormant. They're like, holy shit, I could sell a house at 2%. But as soon as the interest rates started to rise, people were panicked. COVID really did an amazing number, in my opinion, on the real estate market.
I think I agree. I think though it destroyed a lot of people's psyches. People like to live with certainty. And COVID brought a lot of uncertainty. It brought disconnection. It brought loneliness. It brought a lot of fear in people. I actually started this podcast 10 days after lockdown because we were locked down in Pennsylvania for
Mm-hmm,
10 weeks. Real
mm-hmm,
estate was not essential.
mm-hmm.
And so, talk about panicking. I went to lunch with people all the time, dinners, events, out and about, networking and seeing people. It was traumatic for a lot of people. But yeah, look, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's about resiliency, and you have to have resiliency, not just in real estate, in life. Got to
I
keep fighting, got to keep getting up. You got to
Yeah,
keep going. Yes, a lot of people are struggling right now, that's for sure. I do know that if you do the work, Matthew, that work works, and where there's a will, there's a way.
yeah.
And
No, I agree.
there's opportunities. I call it, it's like any market. It's any market. In any market, there's an opportunity. You just have to figure out what the opportunity is, which is why you were on the podcast today, live with us.
I appreciate that.
Talk about the opportunities. So, a couple things before we wrap it up. There's a Tuesday webinar. I want you to send me the information for that. I'm going to drop it in the link. I'm also going to send it out to our whole entire database on that. See if anybody wants to join that webinar, and I'll
Yeah,
describe that. So that's at 11 a.m. on the 16th. Now, also have your event that's coming up at the end of February, 28th, 29th, and March 1st
yeah,
in St. Petersburg, Florida, with your other partners. You're going to talk about this niche. And this is nationwide for any agent, right?
yeah.
Anybody, a wholesaler, an agent investor, any regular real estate agent that wants to learn more about the side of the business. It's going to be a very eye-opening opportunity for people to really learn a different part of what real estate is. So I say, there's all different ways that you can do real estate. Figure out one that works for you and go all in on it. Just like you did, Matthew, right? You did all in on what you do. You're a specialist at that. So real estate professionals, realtors, real estate agents, they can do the same thing. They can go all in on an area. I specialize also in, I do a lot of expired listings, investor business, all different in commercial real estate, because we have different people in our company that, specialize in those. But yeah, create a niche. The riches are in the niches or niches, whatever.
Riches are in the niches. Yeah.
Riches are in the niches. It was great having you today, Matthew. Thank you so much for your valuable insight and being a leader in the real estate industry nationwide. I appreciate your time and your knowledge. And I hope that this message can stimulate some people to taking a chance and learning something new.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And people can find you. You have it right here, MatthewMerenoff.com. And your company, Realestate Recovery Group.com. I'll also drop that in the chat.
Yep.
So thank you for your time. I appreciate you. And let's go make some money by helping people, because that's how we do it. Be the solution. And you are the solution for what you do.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
God bless.